Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 105 of the Podcana podcast. This week, I am joined by a very special guest. We have Harlan Sweet on, everybody. As you know, Harlan's a blue steel enjoyer, but he's turned into a bit of a hamster enthusiast, I think, with all of these Rhino decks running around. So I've been chatting to Harlan over the past few days, kind of picking his brain on Rhino, and he was mentioning to me that he's kind of dove deep into some of these decks, and we're going to be talking about all the different variations of Amber Steel that you may find in your locals in at some of these big tournaments. The deck is basically performing very, very well. I'm not going to jump too much into like meta breakdowns in terms of the representation, but if you go into ink decks, you can kind of clearly see that Amber Steel is pretty much the most popular deck at the moment amongst most players who are playing Lorcana. So um, yeah, there's no surprise, and Rhino is really, really feeding that train. It's kind of the fuel for the deck. So today I kind of wanted to break down the card, talk about some of the best openers you can have with it potentially, also different ways that you can counter the card, because I think a lot of people are kind of asking that question of like, they recognize that this card is powerful, but what are some of the strategies, what are some of the decks that may be able to counter this card specifically, but then also maybe Amber Steel as a whole, because I think traditionally, we've had Ruby Sapphire be known to be like, oh, it kind of stomps on Amber Steel, but Ruby Sapphire is definitely in a different place to where it was previously. But yeah, Harlan, I'm gonna just again let you introduce yourself briefly if people don't know who you are, and yeah, we could just start off with like your overall thoughts on Rhino and maybe some of your experience with the card so far.
Yeah, I mean, when you sent me the notes for the episode and it said Blue Steel Enjoyer turned hamster enthusiast, I did show Ali that because that is my new nickname now is the hamster enthusiast.
Nice, nice.
Um, I'm always like I've always played the deck that sort of I find the most enjoyment as well, and I also think is the best choice. And for a while that was Sapphire Steel.
Hmm.
But with the new Rhino card, and I mean, the three cards worth mentioning is of course the one drop Rhino, the Shift, but I think it's also worth mentioning Lady
Hmm.
because the Amber card that came out in this set, just allowing you to go too wide, your turn three being 2/2 questers, like that's enough to swing any matchup. Like the when I used to play the Diggy Hole, which is like the closest, it pretty much is the same list, wasn't it? The issues which sometimes on the draw versus Ruby Sapphire, you couldn't beat them because they're just mega ramped,
Hmm.
and then they'd slam down Sisu. But able to going too wide on that turn three is amazing. And Rhino is just, I don't really know, like there hasn't been right now, in my opinion, like a very effective way to slot in an answer to the deck. The best thing I've seen so far is like a Troubadour or an Ursula singing Zeus on it. Um, but of course, with the rest of the deck, like the way it functions is if you're just going to put all of that effort into taking out the Rhino and they're just going to keep spamming and dock, and you've gone for one big Zeus on a Rhino, that you sometimes you just lose those matchups. And it's also worth mentioning the one drop Rhino. Like I really undervaluated that card. I thought it was terrible. I was like, oh, I think I'm not even going to play the shift line. I'll just play the four drop. I won't play the one drop. But minusing like one strength on say a genie or something, meaning that they can't on the next turn use their genie to take out your piglet, forcing them to find another answer for it is actually quite big. And there's the little maps that means like your characters can quest for one more turn. And then of course, like I've done turns where you play the one drop minus then shift on three, so you get the effect and you've got the Rhino on board. And in these low to the ground matchups, like I think it's where Dogs is sort of falling out of the meta a bit. Um, just anything they play, you're going to do it and no resist. Their best answer is go five wide and then play the tramp card to buff it, which isn't impossible to, or if they had an Ursa or something that already has an amount of strength, they don't need to go five wide. They just need to get five strength, which isn't impossible to do, but it's just so like expensive and just not great. And it's yeah, he's such a powerhouse card, and I've always loved these lower to the ground like environments like that Kiwi is in. And right now it's just Ambassador Aggro is doing sort of what I've always wanted with Kiwi, but it's just doing it quite a lot better. So I've decided to start playing it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Speaking of Kiwi, there's a few decks within today's episode that we're going to be showcasing that, like, I don't know, when I first looked at them, I was like, this has such a Harlan Kiwi Birds flavor to it. And then, like, over time, I could kind of see it forming into nearly your potential perfect deck. I saw some, like, desperate plans on some people's builds. I saw some three-cost John Silvers. I'm just like, all of these cards just remind me of, of
Uh,
Harlan, which was really funny.
I still think Kiwi's like in a very good spot. So like the two top decks are probably Amber Steel. You've got Steel Song and you've got all the other variants and like Green Steel. So Kiwi has a fairly good game into that. So I think it's still a very strong deck and will be around. And I think in like the 3 game format, I saw a lot of people picking Kiwi as their like steel deck, allowing them to play like Yellow Green Under the Sea and Ruby Amethyst,
Mm.
or however you want to like plan it out. So I still think it's really good. I still play it. I think we've got so probably for store champs as well. I'll definitely bring the list out, but Amber Still Aggro is like all the cards I love in TCGs. Like every other TCG I play, I always play like the swarm decks that just go wide. I'm like the biggest advocate for a zoo deck in Lorcana. There probably is. So it's like I can't not play these cards. I'm running the one drop Mulan, but I'm looking at just swapping that to Simba for nothing else besides it's an animal. It, it's the wrong card to play, I think, because the 2 damage is quite significant, 2 strength. But like, yeah, if I could have a full zoo deck, that'd be really fun.
For sure, yeah. Well, before I jump into it, because we are going to go like really, really in depth with this, like really break down the card Rhino itself, look at a lot of these decks, and then we're also going to be taking a look at some high performing decks from some previous tournaments that took place this last weekend. But before we get into that, of course, we have our spilled ink section. This is our listener question section. If you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below. So the first one is from Okan Shevket 9915. They say, really, really enjoyable podcast. Jordan was a great guest and had some really interesting insights and views. Great chemistry between the two of you. I would love to see more of him in the future. Yeah, Jordan was a great guest last week, and it was funny. As so happens, sometimes we have a guest on. It's the building section took us probably 30, 40 minutes to get through last week, but that's because you guys asked some really, really interesting questions. You were asking us about like rotation, what cards we wanted to see kept in the format, what cards we wanted to really see gone out of the format, and yeah, I had a great time with Jordan, and no doubt he will be back in the future. So glad you guys enjoyed last week's episode. The next comment is from Game Blouses 84. They say, with set rotation being confirmed, would you say that mono-colored decks will never be in Lorcana? So when I think of mono-colored decks, it's quite interesting because a lot of other TCGs have done this in many different interesting ways. For example, in Magic, I know mono-colored decks are like quite common, and in Magic, because the mana that you play is kind of associated with the color, it rewards you for kind of going all in on that specific color. Um, Another comparison I want to point out is another TCG I play, which is Star Wars Unlimited. They do something very interesting where if you're playing a green card, your like your deck building requirements, you'll have to have kind of these cards that are outside of your deck that fulfill the requirements of how you can build your deck have to share color with the cards that you're playing in your deck, if that makes sense. So if I have like a green base, I can play green cards within my deck, but they have this thing that's called like a double color. So say for example, if I have a green base and also like a green leader, then suddenly I can play this color. But um, that means that you have to kind of go all in on this package, and you're also sacrificing the ability to play 2 colors together. So I've made some notes on this briefly, and basically to explain in Lorcana terms, you could go about this in a similar way that they're doing Duel Links, but it's basically the reverse. So you could make more powerful mono-colored cards that reward people for only playing one specific ink within your deck, but that means that you lose the ability to play other cards from other inks within your deck. So if you go mono purple, similar to, okay, if you're playing Amethyst Steel and Amethyst Steel Duel Link card, you have to play Amethyst Steel. So therefore, at least I think that the idea with these Duel Link cards are that these cards are supposed to be more powerful because it's kind of restricting you into this specific deck, and it means you've got some less flexibility. And with these mono cards, that would be even more the case because you're really losing the ability to pair it with another ink identity. So say, for example, on Amethyst, it's like, right, like let's say like what would a powerful mono Amethyst card do? Well, it probably is evasive and draw some cards. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, right? So I honestly don't know if you could. Well, you definitely could design it some way in Lorcana, but I think the inks are so important that you're able to pair kind of 2 identities together that I'm not sure how cards would necessarily come out I'd say the best example would be like sure, a mono amethyst deck. You could argue that some of these have nearly existed in the past, where some ruby amethyst builds have literally been like all purple cards, a 5 cost Mao in a B prep, and that's probably it, right? And the rest is just purple cards. But yeah, Harlan, I'd love to hear your idea on this idea of monocolored cards. I'm not sure if it would work in Lorcana. Of course, the designers could make it work, but it's a bit weird, right? To try and say I'm only playing this one kind of ink identity, and then suddenly you lose that ability to combine that with something else, which makes a lot of these decks great, right?
Yeah, the only mono deck I've ever seen was in Seattle, and it was like that was a very good point for green steel, and they'd made mono purple. And it was just basically they wanted to play every card that said when I played this card, I draw a card. And yeah, but there wasn't really any benefit to it. And I think yeah, I didn't play Magic, but in Pokemon it was the same. It was you needed energy types for your
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon, so the reason why you played a full electric deck was just because you run electric Pokemon. If you threw one fire one in there, you'd have to start throwing fire energy. But in Lorcana, there's not really any negatives. There's to jumping into with one of the other ink colors.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to have some sort of benefit or bonus, like if your entire deck was purple, your entire deck was sapphire. When you start the game, you start with like a location on the board, and that location is really busted. But
Sure.
like you say, you don't get access to another color, and that's like the payoff for it. Because I feel like if you put some cards that had to be in the deck that were like, um, this card can only be played in a mono. I don't. It just feels like kind of ruly. Like, how would you do? You'd have to at the start of the
Exactly.
game go, "I'm on a mono deck," and then you're like, "Oh, so you've just told me what your deck is." So like, yeah, I think it would be quite hard. I think yeah, they'd have to give us benefits for playing full mono decks, wouldn't they?
Yes.
I don't really know how they'd pay off. The only thing I could think of is yeah, you start with a location, but then even that location or character that you start on the board with would tell them that you're on this particular mono deck. So yeah, I think the Duel Links was like the first one, and that was pretty good. And I'm hoping for more mechanics like that. I really would like mono. That would be quite fun. But yeah, just the way the game designed, because the resource system is ink. It's kind of like even like a benefit of playing a full inkable deck. That would be kind of fun, you know, because you would have less access to more powerful cards because in theory most of the powerful cards are uninkable, except for like Maui Shark and Tamatara and stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, I think they've got loads of cool game design and ideas for that, but I've tried to do it in my head, like how you would do mono, and it would have to be a card that you gain for playing mono, but then you also have to tell your opponent that you're playing it, and thus probably losing the mulligan power that you have of you're hiding a deck. But yeah, so it's very interesting.
It's very interesting. I do ultimately think, yeah, we're the more we're talking about it, I think design wise it would actually be a lot trickier
Mm.
than some would think at first glance. Um, and maybe this person who's commented is just referring to, oh, like, will we ever just will cards ever just be good enough that you can play a mono deck? And in my opinion, it's like, well, I mean, listen, if we just continue to get sets and sets and sets and sets, then it is more likely. Like if good cards just keep coming out, but then with rotation and stuff, I think if anything, within Infinity Constructed, sure, I'm sure you could eventually build a pretty cool mono ink deck. But for the moment, I think it's something that won't be coming anytime soon. I think there's so many other kind of design avenues the designers can go down. So I'm just excited for the future and for like new keywords, new abilities to appear on cards for sure. And also just
It's like the point you make. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead. You're good.
It's like yeah, like if you did like in set six, like the Ruby Amethyst when the genie came out, it was like probably 50 cards that were purple, but there was like no negative at all. If you were like, I'll put some B preps and Mowers in there and just move on, you'd only be doing it for the gimmick of I'm running a mono deck,
Hmm.
but it wouldn't
Exactly,
benefit you probably in a competitive environment right now.
100%. Um, The next comment is from Marduk. They say, great episode regarding the commander slash multiplayer formats. That's a good idea. I've created a small Lorcana cube, and my buddies in our friendly local game store have a lot of fun with it. Yeah, so I think I briefly mentioned the idea that I think Lorcana would greatly benefit from um, a well designed and well thought out multiplayer format similar to Commander. And obviously, Commander is something that came from the community within Magic. And I've seen some community formats already where you have like
I've
basically.
played in one.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've played in one. It'll go on a YouTube channel. Color is Law is her name, and I can explain how it was done.
Sure.
Because actually, I've never played Commander, and like when you talk to old MTG sweats. They're like, oh, Commander killed our game, but it was really good fun. That's all I can say. So it was the same as Commander. You have a 100 card deck. It's all singletons,
Mm-hmm.
so you can only have one-offs. It just makes for a bit more fun, crazy combos. You have a hero, which has to be any legendary character.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have an ally, which can be any ally character,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to have a song, and the song can't cost more than your hero character.
Okay.
So the example was I am, and you can also pick three colors, and those three colors have to be represented in these three cards. So I had Sapphire, Steel, and Emerald.
Mm-hmm.
I had Oswald as my hero.
Mm-hmm.
I had Doc as my ally, and my song was I think I was kind of like restricted there because I had Oswald. So my song was Strike a Good Match. But it's
Okay.
the same sort of format. You pay your cost to summon it. If it's removed, it costs 3 now. And if it's removed, it will cost 4. And yeah, you just get some really fun combos. It was me, Ali, and Baker played on her channel. I managed to. Actually, I won't say who won. But it was really good fun. I'd recommend checking it out. And yeah, I went in because I've always just been hyper competitive formats. I don't really pay attention to like if my locals does a theme night or something or any store does, I don't really pay attention to it. But that I had a lot of fun with, and like designing the deck, and it was like every missed Oswald trigger was just like a good laugh of friends, you know. And then when it popped off, it was like one free photon blaster, and it's like we're all just having a laugh about it. So yeah, I thought it was good fun. I'd recommend. I think it's called Heroics. It should be out there somewhere. You had a look.
Yeah, yeah. I really like the idea of that, and I think like you mentioned, the social element is what I really love from formats like this. Like I've been
Mm.
playing like a little bit of Commander recently, and it's just good fun. It's just good fun. You can build wacky decks, have a good time. No one's necessarily playing to win. Like I just play
Yeah.
to do like the most crazy things I can do, and although I'm curious in that format, did you guys all still play to 20 lore, or did the lore increase? Did you play to
Went
like
to
30 or 40?
30.
30.
30 was the cap. It's surprising because when I play multiplayer Lorcana, it feels like it takes forever. But in that format, one person could just rush ahead, and then you play that game like you do, and you have to try and stop them from winning. And your game isn't even to win yourself; it's now to make sure they don't win.
Yep.
So yeah, like I said, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it, but I had an amazing good laugh. Like, and it was good 'cause I could walk away and then go talk about my competitive stuff and play my competitive stuff. And like maybe when Infinity comes around, I could have like that 100 card singleton deck because I just put a lot of the cards I'm not playing in there. And
Hmm.
like I said, I don't care if I win or lose with that deck. So yeah, it'd be kind of fun. I think it'd be good.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty much it from this building section. Again, if you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below. All right, so yeah, we're gonna jump into talking about some of the deck lists surrounding Rhino and just jumping into Rhino more specifically. But before we do that, somebody's missing, Harlan. One of my previous co-hosts, Brendan. I posted this on Twitter as a meme yesterday. I was just doing nothing, and the amount of interaction this post got, I was not expecting it. I was just like, yeah, I'll just post this. It's funny. Everyone misses Brendan. I miss Brendan a lot as well. I think he brought something to this podcast that myself and Moyen maybe are lacking at times. He brings this Brendan energy. I don't know. So yeah, rest assured, I know all of you guys love Brendan. So I'm gonna try to have him back on the podcast before Worlds to get his opinion on things. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of conquest format, the three deck format. See if he has any experience with that in the past, and I know he'll give some good takes. So yeah, if you miss Brendan, rest assured he will be back. But yeah, moving into things. Right. So we've got Rhino, the 4-cost Rhino, and the 1-cost Rhino. So yeah, Harlan, as you mentioned, when you first saw these cards, the 1-cost Rhino didn't really stand out too much. It's the 4-cost one that shined, and that's what I thought as well. I was really looking at the 4-cost one, saying, "Oh, I just run this in my deck without the shift line. It will probably still perform well." But do you want to explain, like, I don't know, potential board state, or like what's the biggest advantage that you gain if you go for this shift line? Because I think just trying to explain to the viewers how difficult of an object the shifted Rhino is to remove on turn 2 will probably make them realize, oh, I should probably be running the shift line if I'm playing a version of Amber Steel.
So I think the only two like ways around the Rhino, or there's probably three, I guess. Like is, as I mentioned, you could put like a Troubadour and Ursula down and sing Zeus on it,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't always feel the best. But you can use that. A lot of people are trying that new free cost, the one from the last set, the free cost Jafar that
Mm-hmm.
gives. Basically, people call it crab Jafar.
Yep.
And I'm going to use the other example is the crab as well, to buff up something. But besides that, you've got this thing that can take out daisies and not take any damage back. 4 is actually like a huge number by turn 2, to be removing everything. The resist is just nuts. It means it can keep fighting, and as I say, it can sing anything you want. And also, if none of those like take your fancy as options, you just quest and gain 2 lore, and you have this insane threat on the board. Like, it's mad as well. Like, I've seen a lot of people testing with grab your swords because we want to see if that changes the matchup. Because the Lady and Piglet are back. There is a lot of things that he doesn't take any of the damage, so you need to invest even more into him. I've even like a lot of people are using Penny again. Of course, you've still got Rapunzel, where just can hit something, heal it, but get shield back online, which feels really great. Probably horrible for your opponent. Um, it's just so powerful to have Elbow too, and I can't really think of many ways to go around it. You couldn't even go like Cinderella, go 3 wide, and then sing Strength on it. You'd only pop the shield, and then you'd have to run something else into it. So even in the like scenarios where he's removed from the board, you get like these weird 2-for-1 sometimes. Like, I've had a Blurple like double play Bell, and they have to run both Bells in to like actually remove it off the board. He's just, the stats that he's got at this early on is so nuts, and the 1-drop as well. I undervalued that because I was still looking at the Ally Kiwi deck, which has a Jasmine card that's pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
It gives 1 resist, I believe, and that card I didn't think was that great. But the 1-drop Rhino, you can do things like with a Calhoun, you can minus them by 1, attack with Calhoun, so your Calhoun sticks, because the problem with Calhoun is she just sits on the board, then she like 1/1s herself and you gain 2 lore, and that's not great half the time. But yeah, giving you that flexibility is it's so amazing. There's so many niche moments of the 1-drop, but also just having that 4-drop on 2 as well, controlling the board from the outright. The only time I think it's pointless is if they're gonna just play a Maui on 5. That's the only time I think the card is not worth it. But that's about it.
Sure, yeah. And there's there's so many different things to think about as well, where like you mentioned, like some of the ways that I've been thinking about trying to get around it is very similar to the ones you mentioned already, is basically just going for strength buffs, challenger buffs. So you've got crabs, you've also got that new Amethyst Yelena card, the 3-cost one that I think gives something challenger +2.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
the purple one.
yes, that's also something you could potentially look at. As you mentioned as well, a lot of the Blurple players and even some Ruby Amethyst decks are trying to go for the, moving damage counters because that gets around the resist. But I think it's very difficult to move 3 damage, so you're gonna have to have something has 3 damage
Yeah.
counters on it, and then move all 3 over. I think that's very, very tricky. It's not gonna happen a lot of the time.
If by that point you've gone, say, like a line of Rhino, shift Rhino, play Lady, play a Piglet,
Hmm.
it's like, for starters, they've got to find 3 damage that's not on the Rhino to move it over, which is already quite hard. And at that point, Rhino as well, like I say, he can sing your removal. You don't have to just quest. He kind of locks down these crazy boards. In my current list, I've actually cut Calhoun because I felt Rhino was just. I think she's still amazing in this format, but Rhino just locks the board down so much. And in the mirrors and other decks that, other Amber Steel builds, like if you don't have Rhino down, you sometimes just lose the game.
Hmm.
So it's why take that risk? I just tend to go for it in the mulligan now.
For sure, yeah. What are your thoughts on running? Because I've seen this little bit of a shift within the meta, and I don't know if it's specifically because of Rhino. It might be, but it might not be, because I thought this was a good choice, but now that I've been thinking about Penny as a card that can like heal something back up, and of course you got Rapunzel. So my question to you is, 1-cost cards that can hit for 3 strength. So let's talk about like your 1-cost Captain Hooks. Let's talk about your Rafikis to at least try to pop that shield to then be able to take out the Rhino a little bit more easily. But that just seems like super, super inefficient. Like if that's the route that you want to go down,
Yeah.
then maybe you don't have to run your 3-strength 1-drops. You just play like a 2-strength 1-drop and then get to your crab and then just crab it and take it out. That's probably a lot more efficient rather than just popping the bubble. But then the tricky thing is, I guess regardless if it's a 2-strength 1-drop or a 3-strength 1-drop, like you mentioned as well, like a lot of people might not be thinking about this. They might think, "Oh, I'll shift the Rhino and just quest because it's never gonna get hit." And especially if you're on the play, it's just never going to die on turn two on your opponent. Like there's literally nothing that they can do to take it out. But the thing to consider as well is they could shift this and then still sing like a Storm Rage on to get rid of your one drop if you did play a Captain Hook or if you did play a one cost 2/1 or something like that. So it's just those kind of opening lines. Like, do you think it's worth like running specifically a one drop with 3 strength to try and combat the Rhino somehow in general, or do you think it doesn't really
I
matter?
did see the like uptake in Captain Hook, and it's like so like in my opinion, when it because I played a lot of Sapphire Steel where Captain Hook mainly appeared and kind of got run out because yeah, Cindy sings Let the Storm, so does
Exactly.
Rhino sing Let the Storm. So I don't really know the reasoning on the deck design with people going for that
Mm-hmm.
because you're like it's almost like you've ignored that they have ways to sing Let the Storm that early and take it out, and they all take that as a good value, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it might be that they really don't have any other options, and also as well is that do you have it? If you don't have it, I can actually do this line, and you could run it in, maybe fire the cannons, take it out. But it's also I think people will look at the Amber Steel aggro, and I don't blame people, and they look at aggro decks and go, haha, it's just put your goons on the board and turn them sideways.
Sure.
Like I completely get it. I know like in the TCG world, like the attitude towards aggro decks, but I think to push them a bit further, like I had a really long like discussion with a few people about if I can shift them on two, do I have to shift them on two?
Mm.
Because you may have like a Daisy and a Cindy, or something else, or like a couple more one drops, or another 2 drop. Do I have to shift him, or can I just keep going wider? Because if I have the shift in hand, I can take that whenever I want. And progressing like yeah, shift on two is great, but you didn't go 2 characters wider, and you didn't get more lore on the board. So if you played a Smee, you already be getting 3 lore the next turn, or whatever. So it is. I think there's also loads of like fundamental choices on that. Like I don't always shift it on two if I can play something else. But you also have to weigh up: Are they going to remove my shift line? Because if it goes, I've lost that opportunity choice. So I think there's quite a lot of depth to the deck. And the more people counter it, the more it's going to get harder to play. And I've been mainly enjoying like the Vinny build. I
Sure.
don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen any of.
Yeah.
I
I saw
love.
the Vinny ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm way preferring the Vinny deck because it turns every character into a one extra quester,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Like, and it's very awkward for people to remove Vinny, and if they do, it means they're not removing your Piglet or Daisy or whatever else on the board. So I've been really liking that version. But yeah, I I think yeah, for a card like Vinny, where the whole community, Vinny, sorry, Rhino, I just love Vinny too much. For like Rhino, like he's really shaken everything up, and like I noticed like a lot of the other podcasts and just everyone in like the content world is like doing a video on Rhino. And like everyone in every deck discussion on all the discords is like, how do you beat Rhino with this deck? So if anyone says this card isn't good, like it's a card that's impacting the meta that much, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and I also feel like some people that say like, "Oh, I can just answer it with this. It doesn't matter."
Yeah,
Like you're kind of kidding yourself a little bit. Like, of course, the whole idea is yes, we want to be playing a deck that can counter this, but the idea that this card is so easy to counter, I don't think that's true for a second. I think it's a very
yeah,
tricky card to try and handle and to try and play around. And if your opponent's good as well, they can expect certain things, right? And that's not to say that
yeah.
like they're not going to turn it sideways if the opponent has a crab or something like that. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But um,
But
as you said, there's a lot more depth to this card than probably first meets the eye, in my opinion.
yeah, it's like a lot of people saying, "Well, I'll just fire the cannons, the one dropper." It's like, for starters, you're playing Green Steel. No, when has Green Steel ever run fire the cannons besides those like dock pirate decks?
Hmm.
And then even from that, it's like, so if you knew that fire the cannons was quite commonly played in this matchup or whatever, you may opt to play a Daisy turn one, then turn two, play like 2 1 drops like a Cindy and a Rhino,
Hmm.
or or like if you were playing Robin Hood, or like maybe double Rhino if you got lucky. And it's like going that little bit further with the deck, going, I know you're going to do that, so I'm going to make it so it's very hard for you to answer this now. So yeah, even I've had games where you hard play them on four because sometimes you can get into this stalemate where no one wants to turn sideways because no one wants to give the good trades, and then it's like, and here's a Rhino as well. So once you start turning sideways, the board's just going to be easier for me to clean up. So definitely, I think he changes it. And the deck kind of archetype is so aggressive; it doesn't really care about these big control decks like decks that have like Maui Sharkin, I guess, for example, because it has a completely different game plan there. It's just going to turn sideways with everything and race you and probably win before you get any shark value anyway. So it's dominating the early game matchups. Like I don't know really. Like I say, Chernodog's beating this is just really hard. And if they put all the effort into beating that, like you're like, cool, I've just played two Smees, you know, or
Sure.
whatever. I've just gone wide and dock spammed you, so I don't care that much.
Exactly, yeah. That's actually a good point you make as well of like just the idea of dropping this on 4 because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like just like general Amber Steel decks, not even these like specific aggro ones, not that they've struggled to play something on turn 4, but usually
Mm,
if they don't have the Rapunzel line ready, they're probably just going to play like another 3 drop, or they've played their aerial and they're gonna like a whole new
yeah,
world and then refill their hand and stuff. But I think in that general curve, unless that's the idea of this card as well as like exactly you don't have to shift this onto you. If you just go one drop, double one drop, or one drop Smee,
mm,
Lady, Piglet, just play this on 4 and it's fine. It's still good on turn 4, right? It's not like you have to have this shift line. It's just still a
no,
super powerful body that, like previously Amber Steel maybe didn't have that on turn 4. Maybe some of them have played uh, Pluto in the past. If there's any other 4 drops that I'm forgetting, definitely remind me. But I don't think there's like Levines as well. But like you don't
yeah,
really want to
yeah.
be like jamming that on 4 unless you've got a good song to pair with it as well. So I think that's just a general body to play on curve. It's
I
also
mean,
super strong.
the 4 drop's great, and also saving the value of the 1 drop.
Hmm.
Like, if they play a Lawrence on 3 and you minus it, and you've been questing of daisies, it's like, well, now your Lawrence can't 1/1 this, which is
Hmm.
I'm pretty. You can't do the 1/1 here or Rapunzel or whatever. And like, even I've done it to like a Fox, where okay, I don't have a Let the Storm to take this Fox out because it's already took up 1 daisy, and you minus it, and now they need to put a crab or they need to hit it with something else as well. So it's just like that 1 drop value is just pretty nuts. And then, like I said, me personally, I'm going to keep advertising how great Vinny is.
Hmm.
You're littering the board with these 1 drops and these 2 drops, and then you play Vinny on top. And at any point, if you draw the shift, you can shift it, or you maybe have the shift in hand and you can shift it. And it's fairly complex lines. And someone said as well, like dock decks, like you're probably on average going to see the top 15 to 20 cards of your deck. Like maybe if you get another dock, you're going to keep getting lucky.
Hmm.
So you have to find the win with those cards, which is can be quite a struggle, really. So it's playing every card to like its most optimal value is how you're going to win.
For sure. I love Vinny's like pose with his head like this as well. He's like, "Be prep me, I dare you. Clear my board. Let me gain all my lore." You know?
Oh, it's like the most checkmate card. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And then it's like even if they play Elsa Exert, run it in, or they played a Brawl on it, it's like that took so much to kill something. Also, only quest for 1, but you have to kill it because of course your other
And you're
alternative
and you're
is
not targeting my other stuff exactly, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and my Daisy, my Piglet has had no attention for that turn,
Hmm.
and yeah, it just makes them amazing checkmates. And I mean, the list I've been running has no Rapunzels, which is it's been so mad because I remember when Sapphire Steel had like before the ban, we had all these players come over
Hmm.
and they were like, "Cut Tinkerbell, grab your swords." We were like, "No, those are staple cards from the start of the.
Hmm.
You're never
Sure.
cutting those cards." And then a lot of players have come over to Amber Steel and said like, "I don't think Rapunzel has great value here. Cut her." And then there's like diehards who said, "That's crazy that you'd cut that card." Um, but I found because I'm playing so many cheap 1 drops, I want to play this game where I just kind of turn things sideways and set up for Vinny plays. She hasn't come out that great. And if I dock and I drew a Rhino and a Rapunzel, I'm probably only playing with like 4 ink. I will just pass turn after that and, not keep spamming and going wider. And that can feel pretty rough as well.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I think there's loads of depth to it. And like, it was nice to see Kurt do really well with his list. Because that was like classic Diggy Hole. That's like, it's still using Rhino and stuff, but the difference between that and a Vinny list is also like quite vastly different in my opinion. There's like loads going on there, so there's some real depth to it. When you get past the stigma of aggro, just turn everything sideways and
Sure.
slam them
As you
down.
said, turn all your
Yeah,
goons sideways. Yeah.
yeah. I love aggro in every other deck, like in every other game. Like I've always loved it as an archetype, and yeah, I think there is always that default of I don't know what to do, jam them on the board and turn them sideways or whatever in what game. But in here, I think yeah, there's loads, and winning on the draw with aggro and Lorcana is like fairly quite hard, I think.
Hmm. Yep. Well, speaking about all these different deck variations, and even I know you mentioned Kurt's list there. That's what we're gonna get into a little bit later on. But
Mm.
moving on now, I want to give a shout out to some of the fans of the podcast because they provided some of their versions of Aggro Amber Steel. So let's have a look through them, shall we? So the first one here is from Luna, and I would say this is like again, a lot of these decks are going to look very similar. They're going to have like kind of minor card changes and card tweaks, but this looks like a very solid kind of aggro deck. The interesting card, and I've seen a few Amber Steels have this card in here, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it particularly, which is the legendary Chef Goofy, which I think combos pretty well with like Smees and stuff like that. If Smee hasn't been taken out, to be able to kind of re-ready it as well. This particular deck's also running the Darling Deer, which, for those of you who don't know what the card does, it's a 5-cost inkable 4/4 with an Amber that quests for 1, and when you play it, you can give another character +2 lore for this turn. Very annoying card to play against and sealed. But I think if you want to run it as like a little bit of top end on some of these aggro decks, it's honestly not the worst. It's inkable, which is great. You don't have to play it. You can just put it down into your inkwell. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this kind of general build, and maybe just overall thoughts on the Goofy? Are you higher on it, or are you lower on it?
Yeah, I like quite a lot that goes on in this, and as you say, most of them are very similar. I'm always interested if people are to run Lilo instead of Penny, but we're on Penny here, and Penny has become quite a powerhouse in these low to the ground matchups because like you've got the Penny and the Goofy, and these are just ways to keep Smee alive for longer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really good. It also allows you to do some interesting like offensive moves and then heal things up as well. And I think with the it's a 5-drop, isn't it?
Yep.
The Darling Deer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when we learned from the Duel Link Lady card, like 4/4 is just actually kind of a nut stat for an aggro deck to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's fairly awkward for like all the red decks to answer, and yeah, it's 4 is just a really good number. So I quite like the card, and by that point, if your board isn't like wide enough where you top deck her and she's going to give you value, you've probably lost the game anyway. So or you play into a line where you're playing up to that 5 ink and you're going to play her. Yeah, and just as a 2 off, like they might leave like a 1-drop on the board and not think about it, and you're at 17 lore, and you top deck it, play it, and just win the game.
Just win the game.
Like, yeah, things like that can happen. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty cool list. I quite like it.
For sure. All right, moving on to the next one. Again, this is another Podcana submission. So here's when I started to see a bit of Harlan flavor come out. Now, the notable thing about this is, yes, it's not playing Rhino, which I think is probably the biggest downfall of the deck. But I think there's some interesting ideas in here, and there's definitely like cards you could cut to potentially include it. But yeah, so this has the Diggy Diggy Hole package of like the Seven Dwarfs Mines with the Happies and the Docks, but it also has 2 cards that you're fairly familiar with, which is the 3-cost John Silver and also Desperate Plan. So I think a lot of people know your opinion on John Silver in general. It's a pretty solid card, but how do you feel about Desperate Plan in particular within these Amber Steel decks? Do you think it's interesting to include, or do you think, because I think for me initially at least, it's like Doc maybe does its job, but maybe
Yeah.
a little bit of extra or a little bit of Desperate Plan isn't too bad.
I have I don't know where it is, a Desperate Plan Enchanted, because it was like the first card I wanted to get a playset of Enchanted, because I really like the card. And like nearing like rotation, we might get a bunch of cards that will be amazing next set.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even right now it's really good. It kind of just extends your ability to do the dock spamming.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, of course, because it costs 3, and it's going to be a real down tempo turn when you play it, because for 3 ink, you probably want to get to about 5 ink when you use it. So you can also play some other stuff that you draw. But just like sometimes with the Diggy Holes or the Amberstill aggro, the reason why you lost is you didn't find a dock.
Mm-hmm.
And to be like, we can include a card that will extend your chance to get that dock. You can now have, in a sense, like 5 theoretical docks, or in this one 6 because there's 2 in there. So I think it's really good. In practice, like my first week of locals, I brought my Amberstill aggro, and it was like so filler.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just threw a Desperate Plan in there just to make the numbers up on the card because I didn't have everything I wanted yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was working fine. Yeah, I think it's pretty nice. I fully recommend it in Kiwi. I think you have a lot of turns where you can take that down tempo turn where you play it, and then the next turn it's just 5-drop, 5-drop, 5-drop. It's really good, and it compared really well the Duel Link Arthur. If you lean into it. But here as well, yeah, you're just extending that use of like dock spamming, and because even if you had 4 or 5 ink and you play this and you play like Double Daisy or Daisy Cindy or Smee or whatever afterwards, that's awesome. I would probably include like some Mulans. That's what I use in my list,
Mm-hmm.
which is draw 1, discard 1. Because the only issue with Desperate Plan is, say if you drew a Let the Storm and you were never able to sing it, and you've got a Desperate Plan and you hard cast a Let the Storm, and then you draw a Calhoun, and now you can't you
Sure.
can't ever really use the desperate plan because your hand wasn't clean enough. The worst thing is holding a desperate plan and then the next turn you draw another one. That is like just so painful. But I think yeah, a one or two is where I'd lay on it, and I think like it's absolutely fine to play it. I think it's really good.
For sure, yeah. I do think looking at this deck, just after adding up like the uninkable count, I think it's on 16. I think that's like maybe a little bit too high for an aggro deck in terms of how
Yeah.
consistent you want something to be. Um, and yeah.
If you can get the let the storms out of your hand, and then yeah, it's like the Calhouns and the daisies, you can probably play them out.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think 16's yeah probably getting a bit too high at that point.
And then moving on to the final submission. Again, I want to say thank you to everybody that did send decks in. I wasn't able to showcase all of them, of course, but I want to highlight this one because this was kind of this is a cool final deck 'cause this is kind of like a mix mash of everything we've just seen. Right, we saw the Goofy in the
Mm.
first deck, and then we saw um the Mines package and the Happies in the previous deck, and then the Rhino is still in this deck as well. So um yeah, I think this is quite an interesting version. This is probably again, like I said, we'll be looking at Kurt's list a little bit later. This is probably quite close to Kurt's list potentially, but yeah, what are your thoughts on this list in particular? It's like it's lower on the pennies. It's got three Calhoun. It's got three one drop Daisy, um, but it's
The
got
list
the
looks a
Rhino in
lot
there, right?
more. Yeah, it looks a lot more resilient.
Mhm.
And I think maybe the more I play like three, I think maybe not for my aggressive version with Vinny, but three daisies feels quite correct.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of matchups where you don't want it. Like if you're going to play a daisy into a purple deck, likely chances you don't want to do that because they'll just Fox remove it,
Mhm.
and you've given them a bunch of card draw for say one or like two or four lore,
Mhm.
and it's just always the wrong play. So yeah, I think there's lots in there. It's interesting to see how like a lot of the listeners like putting the Goofy quite high.
Mhm.
Because I haven't seen it played that many places. Like I've seen it played locally and stuff. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. Restanding things and things like that is pretty good. Wait, how does the Goofy work again? Goofy's not restand, is it?
Just yeah, at the end of the turn, you can heal one from a character,
Yes.
and then you get to ready it. So, for example, like you can let your Smee take the damage first, and then you can trigger your Goofy to heal the Smee up, and it'll get ready.
I mean, right now I'm testing out Sven, which lets you restand.
Mm.
I generally don't know why I wouldn't walk away from recording this and just taking the Svens out and trying Goofy, to be honest with you. Because yeah, I mean, and you're also putting this free four on board. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think, and also keeping the Smee healthy as
Mhm.
well. Yeah, yeah, I like quite a lot on the list. It looks a lot more resilient than others, and I think maybe Diggy Hole will end up being on top of all these different Amber Steel aggros because happy in the mines, like if you're in these stalemate matchups that you can sometimes get into, and you're just bouncing between mines, and they've got no way to pressure the mines, and you're dealing two damage every turn, so they kind of probably win the mirrors, I reckon.
For sure, yeah. Another thing to note about the Goofy is it's kind of similar to the Rhino, like I mentioned. It's just another good curve four drop. So that's another reason why I can
Mm.
see it's like again, you're doing your 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe on turn three, you want to challenge like you're. I think Goofy's a really good card if you're going second, maybe because then if you want to challenge into some of your opponent's stuff, and then you'll put the Goofy down, and you're able to kind of ready your guys up again. Um, so I haven't experimented
It,
with the
it,
card too much, but I'm definitely curious to give it a shot.
yeah, it's interesting with though like the aggro deck, like a lot of decks just curve as you say one,
Mhm.
two, three, four. But with this deck, it's a lot of I play one, then two twos, or like, and then on three you play Lady and get another one, and then on four you might play Smee Doc. And it's interesting how like off curve you go quite a lot of the time. Well, not off
Mhm.
curve, but you double spell is the saying really. But to be honest with you, like just having a consistent, I can look in the mulligan and go one, two, three, four. Like, and if you play like Daisy, Smee, Lady, and then Goofy, it's like probably an insane board that no one can really touch, and things are getting restanded as well.
Sure. That's a good point you make about like going 2-2 on four as well. Like that's a really really good option. And there's actually
Mm.
a lot less three drops in this deck than maybe previous Summer Steels. Like you've got the ladies and the Pete's, which I think are like super super solid three drops. You've got Lawrence as well, which is in some decks, which is also fine. But yeah, I kind of just like the fact that on turn four you can play a solid four drop, or you can play two very very good um two
Mm.
drops as well. Um, yeah, there's one other deck I want to show from one of our viewers here quickly, and it's just one of their ideas that they had of like how to potentially answer the Rhino deck. And it's surrounding some of the ideas we talked about already, right? Of this Amethyst Steel package where they're like really going in on like buffing their little guys to trade up into it. So they've got four Merlins,
Oh
they've got
wow.
four Merlin crabs, three Elenas, and three Jafars. So I need to quickly look at these cards to see. Yeah, so the Jafar and the Elena, they both give Challenger
It's
+2. Um,
3 cards that, in a sense, are just like crab,
yep.
just in there. Yeah.
So it's particularly strong there, and I mean, I guess maybe those cards are also a reason why, for example, maybe we're seeing these Captain Hooks because if you don't always have the Crab, the Yelena, and the Jafar, you'll need that 3 strength +2 to be able to cleanly take out the Rhino, um, potentially. But I think every other like card in this deck is just solid. This is just like a solid Amethyst Steel build with like I don't know. These are just like good cards, anyways. Like if you just play these, and even if you're not against Amber Steel aggro, like you're just buffing your small guys to kind of trade up. They're leaving decently statted bodies behind. Oh, if you want a 2/3 that quest for 2, you've got that. If you want a 3/2 that quest for 2, you've got that. And then the rest, you're just playing ghosts. You're playing genies. You're playing your songs. Only 2 strength. Maybe you could up your strength, but I kind of like how low to the ground this is, and how much is focused on kind of just like playing, your bodies out, right?
Oh, yeah, so like right now everyone's having fun with Amber Still aggro and like just winning their locals and like climbing up on leaderboards and things like
Hmm.
that. But I said just wait. Like for some reason, Amethyst Steel, like at least the dock build has been quiet for like a couple sets. But I was like, no, that deck used to be like a horrid matchup. You'd always like have to play the Daisy because it's the only card in your hand, and it'll quest, and it goes great. You got a fox or a crab.
Yep.
But in this is like you got a Jafar, a Yelena. Like which thing do you want to defeat me with? Like yeah, this does very well into that, and just using the bounce package to recycle things. That's just this is the kind of deck that can easily beat Amber Steel aggro. And I think like I'm going to be playing Axion. I think by that time most people will have figured out good ways to win that matchup. So yeah, it might be a dock build. And as you like, you wouldn't feel bad taking this into another matchup.
Oh
You'd be
no,
like, no, I've
no.
got options. Yeah,
Hmm.
every card feels like it's fairly valid in it. So yeah, when decks like this come around, Amber Still aggro will drop down its tiers, I think. But the power of Rhino is making everyone build like this as well. Like you probably don't want to include these cards because you've never run them before in your deck, but you're having to because Rhino's so powerful right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting, and yeah, if you guys want to try and tackle the Rhino decks, this is a brew I'd start with, and maybe you can kind of tweak some numbers and try some things. But yeah, I think most of the people within the community are kind of starting to I realized that yeah, Amethyst Steel in general tends to do pretty well against these
Mm.
Amber Steel aggro decks. But and the cool thing is again, like similar to the Amber Steel aggro decks, there's also a lot of ways that you can build these Amethyst Steel decks as well to answer it. So that's kind of cool.
Mm.
Yeah, we're gonna jump into some of the top performing deck lists from this previous weekend. We had some tournaments that took place, so let's jump into it. All right, so kicking things off, we've got Kurt Spice coming in with the winning list from the Inc. Invitational 10K tournament. This is a 128 player event, and yeah, this is another version of these Amber Steel aggro decks. It's still the Diggy Diggy Hole version, but it's actually on 2 Rapunzel's Tower, which is quite interesting. Uh, what do you think about that location? I'm going to ask you what do you think about it, and I'm also going to have to reread it to actually make sure I remember exactly
Oh,
what it does.
oh, I love Rapunzel's Tower. Yeah, it's it
I
just
got it. I
pairs
got
so well.
it.
Yeah, this is I think it's only 3 card different from the list he brought to his Continentals. They got him his Worlds invite, and the 3 cards, are, of course, the 3 new ones added in. And Lawrence has been dropped, and I think a few the other 2 I can't remember what they are.
Hmm.
Maybe Lilo. But yeah, Kurt's like an amazing player, and it's like even in his like final game, I sometimes like watch other players and try and go like predict what to do in the mulligan, and then he does something completely different and absolutely stomps the game. And I'm like, oh wow, he's like playing at such a high level. But this one is like way more resilient. I also watched this game against Chernodogs, and it was just I didn't think they had a way into the game at all. And there was at one point he had 2 mines out, just jumping between them every turn. He had Calhoun's ready, so if they ever tried to challenge or quest, he could take them out. And it's just amazing. Yeah, it's a really good list. And again, I think even to the red decks, you have got 4 Calhouns in there, but you could just play such an aggressive game plan that you got 4 piglets as well. Of course you could outquest them easily. So
100%.
I think
Yeah.
it's very good. And like with Rapunzel's Tower, I run that in set 6 as well.
Mhm.
And it's like if they play a character, you play your character, they quest of yours, and they think it's fine, it will just do a 1-1. You play tower on 3, you move it, hit, and then you Rapunzel Tower, you Rapunzel heal the next turn,
Mhm.
and card advantage, board pressure, everything you're just winning on. So the card's just very, very powerful.
For sure. Yeah. Uh, Congrats again to Kurt for winning that event. I will say as well, there's one or two lists I haven't included here, and I want to say congrats to the players. And I hope the comments aren't mad at me for not including it. But there was a really cool second place list from this particular event. It was a Emerald Amethyst one. I'll leave a link to
Mm.
Inkdex down below in the video description if you guys want to check it out. But it was 62 cards, so you know us over at Podcana. We can't cover that deck, but I will say congrats to the player for coming second place. There was some interesting text in there. Looking at the next one though, this is from Luca, and this is a first place list that took down a 94 player event, and it's a Blurple list. Um, and there is that Mystic Bell, the 5 cost 4/4 that we've been talking about. That I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is potentially the answer to Rhino, and I think it probably fits into Blurple the best because you've got stuff like genies that you can attack into something and then maybe move the damage from a genie. Iago is similar, but um, Iago's a tricky one as well because I don't know how many Iago you want to be playing again if your opponent just has access to stuff like Storm and just has access to stuff like Strength. But in any of the non-Amber Steel matchups, Iago's just like super 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 solid. Um, this deck's also got the Monstros where I feel like again, when you're playing against Blurple, I think you can also often forget just how fast they can ramp. They can ramp like pretty fast. They get to a Monstro and like say you're playing your Amber Steel aggro deck, they get to a Monstro, they should have a decent amount of cards in their hand because they're playing Amethyst, so they should be able to be drawing cards, and they could like just pretty much wipe your board. Like it's crazy to think that oh, I'm against Blurple and I've got like daisies and smees and everything like out. Like next turn I just win and they play this card, bam 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 bam. You've got no board. Now, granted, they probably will have no hand as well, but you know, um, I think a monster is a card that is I don't know. It's surprising me a little bit, but I can see its power because it's just so similar to Scar, and you discarding your cards once you're that high, on ink and stuff maybe doesn't matter too much. Again, in a deck like this, hopefully you should be top decking some decent card draw. Like if you've got no cards, you top deck a Finders Keepers or Friends. You got some popsicles. You top deck a Tamatoa, get your popsicles back. You're kind of back in the game. There's a lot of interesting things that you can do with the Splurple list, and I also actually like the fact that it's got 4 Hades as well for some of the trickier targets. Like the Hades also, well, I never like to say this. They can deal with the Rhino, but you never really want to be playing on a shifted Rhino because you're going to give your opponent 2 ink. But if you're playing against aggro, maybe if it just clears it, it clears it, right? So it's interesting. What's your experience playing against Blurple in general? Because I'm always back and forth with this deck, and I can never kind of make up my mind of like how I place it because I see so many people performing so well with it, but whenever I picked it up myself, I don't know. I just can't. I can't crack it. Maybe it's just not my deck.
It feels like it's gone into like category of like the way Ruby Amethyst was for so long, where it was just like overall I don't think it has particularly bad matchups. Maybe Yellow Green Under the Sea, it struggles into.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I because I don't know if it was card for card, but I've got a very similar list that I've built myself because I was like, oh, it seems Blurple is like the deck that has a fairly good matchup spread. And its other matchup is like Ruby Sapphire Workshop, and it's like I don't know. I feel like I go to an event and maybe avoid those 2 decks for the entire day.
Hmm.
So that means I have a very good matchup spread. Um, when I've played into it, like, yeah, those turns where they don't control your board and they just go sail, tipo, and you're like, oh no, you're just gonna play Monstro down, and you have to like evaluate everything because maybe you're not gonna get game in the next 2 turns. Like maybe it takes 3 turns, and you have to evaluate like, okay, how many cards have they actually got left in their hand? Like, how much Monstro damage can they do to me? One time I evaluated differently, and then they were like Sing Friends, Monstro, hit, and they could like discard 2 for attack for 2 more. It's very powerful. Of course, yeah, they kill their hand. And I think the Hades later on in the game, like you say, you could use a Hades and a Rhino. If you've got your like genie, whatever, Bell, and a Monstro, and they're all just full questing for 6 every turn, and whatever your opponent top decks and plays, because you took everything out with the Monstro, you just play Hades on it, and then you're like, and I've got another 2 quester.
Hmm.
Yeah, you put it in the Inkwell, but like you're a dock deck and you're top decking, so I don't mind too much. And then you just full quest, and that's how they tend to beat me quite consistently. And yeah, I find if they misspell, it's very easy game. You can put on so much pressure so early on. You know, if they're on the draw as well, they have to ramp, then they have to play their thing. And if they don't play a genie, if they play an Iago or a goat, I'm kind of quite happy with that because you just shoot the Iago or the goat is not going to do too much. Maybe you can take it. Maybe they kill a Daisy. That's about it. But you go so wide so early and you just set up such a powerful board state. But if they can get the Bell out, Bell Tipo, hit some things, then you say like get a shift off, or just hard player, move the damage over. It can be very horrible. I felt in my testing like Green Steel and Blurple have been the 2 decks I've been struggling the most into. Green Purple can, but like I never know what Green Purple is anymore because it's like either a discard deck or a tempo deck. But Blurple, like yeah, definitely. They've got a lot of cards in there. I never really understood why they dropped Crab. Um, but I guess with this build, it's like, what are you crab buffing like a Tipo? Yeah, so maybe that's why they dropped it. But yeah, I think this is definitely a scary deck for Amber Steel aggro.
For sure, yeah. And I think whenever I look up Liverpool decks in my mind, I'm always like, wow, do these guys think that they can always just hit Bell turn 1? Like, I'm like, how do
They
they think
can.
they can do that? But then I'm just like, well, I play a Diablo deck, and I think I can shift Diablo turn 1 every game. So I'm like, it's the same thing. It's literally the same thing. And the Mulligan and Lorcana is so powerful that like, if you really want to go for it, you can go for it, and there's a high
Mm.
chance that you will hit it. So, um, yeah, respect the Blurple players, like, and there's people that I actually what I really like about the Blurple players is I feel like there's such a strong community and people that have been like tinkering away at the deck for so long, and those are the players that if you play against them on the deck, they know every line to the deck. They will stomp you and take advantage of your lack of knowledge against the deck. And
Oh,
that's the case against many decks, right? It's why I felt like I've had an advantage in some cases when I play Amber Emerald, because some people aren't familiar with how devastatingly I can discard their hand. Stuff like that, This the surprise factor that goes a long way. And if people just see them ramping, and for example, like, oh yeah, they're just ramping, and they forget about the monstro, they don't think about the monstro, and then that takes them by surprise. Suddenly, the game is literally flipped.
I really admire like the Blurple community and like they're actually like just everyone inside is nice. And I picked up ages ago and I was like, I can't beat Green Steel. I just don't beat it, not even if I'm on the play. And they're like, I'll just do this, this, and this. And I did, and I won. And it was like, it's. I didn't realize actually how good Blurple can even be into Green Steel these days. It still has the Prince John problem where it has quite, as long as they don't turn it sideways, they literally can't answer that card.
Hmm.
But if you're ramping Genie into Finders Keepers, and then just slamming big bodies every turn, you don't really care about the 1/2 of Ward on board.
Hmm.
So yeah, and even into Amber Steel aggro, like they could do an early bit of trading. Um, as I've practiced with some like very good players, and it's like I'm even scared now to leave the Teeper on board because like what you could do with that with the Fox or whatever, and it's just yeah, it's got a lot of skill depth, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of put it to the side. I think I could play it all right, but if I played like some Blurple God, I just have absolutely no chance in the mirror.
I think that's the same for me, right? And it's why maybe I'll also admit to this, why I haven't maybe put so much respect on the deck previously, is because I maybe haven't understood it, or I haven't been able to play it the best myself, and therefore I'm like, oh, if I can't play it that well, it's probably not that good. But it's the exact same concept of when I play Amber Emerald. Not everybody plays that deck,
Mm.
but the more I played that deck, I've really understood the lines. Um, and also, like you said, my deck actually kind of usually has a favorable matchup into this deck. So whenever
Yeah,
somebody
quite a
plays
good one.
Blurple against me, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, this is this is fine for me. Um,
Besides Elsa, I think they can't really interact with your board.
yeah,
Yeah.
they can't deal with John. They can't deal with muses exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I will say is we actually don't have any green steel decks to talk about today, but there were definitely some that were in the top eights of some of the previous tournaments that took place this weekend. So before we jump over to the next list, I know you said that that's one of the decks that you're actually um, potentially having some issues with when you're playing Amber Steel aggro. Do you want to speak about that, like maybe briefly? And I'm assuming is it because like they can establish their singer Ursula and then double sing their songs to clear a lot of targets, or what are your thoughts on Amber Steel aggro against Green Steel specifically?
Yeah, I feel so on the play. It sometimes feels like you can just do an aggressive line, like just spam your characters out, go wide, play Pete at the right time. Of course, when they would double sing, and even so, even on the play, I've ignored Diablos. I'm like, have your one card a turn. I might dock. Who knows? But on the draw, yeah, it's this slow grind, and then they'll get to a point where they get Ursula down, they get Muses down, they're double singing. They've snatched your strength, because they played their Ursula on two, and it's kind of rough. I was maybe looking at like Kurt's list because I think Diggy Hole's just a bit more resilient, especially as he built it like four Calhouns, four Mines, four Happies. It just felt like you could do a bit more on the offense there. But yeah, I think sometimes the only thing that ever defeats Greensteer was themselves. Like they might just mulligan and get a bad mulligan. But like one of our most powerful lines is play Lady, go Piglet.
Mm-hmm.
If they've got Ursula out, they double sing Let the Storm, and they walk away from this entire scenario amazingly. Of course, in that scenario, you'd like to play Pete and then sing Strength from them, but they've already probably snatched the Strength with the Ursula. So it does feel pretty rough. And then you've got Muses. You're never going to get rid of the Muses. They're never going to turn that sideways. And I think maybe because green yellow under the sea is a little bit fairly slower to do that, and you don't have. I mean, Ursula double singing Let the Storm is two things removed and two things can be bounced,
Mm-hmm.
or up to that amount of things. Whereas yours would be more of slowly putting a song out every turn with green yellow. So I felt maybe we'd have a decent matchup into that, and a nicely timed Pete kind of just wins you the game. But yeah, I also as well green steel and amber steel aggro, like these two both right now seem to be the two top decks of the format,
Mm-hmm.
and they when out testing they both just quite consistently win on the play, which is like not uncommon in Lorcana, is it really? They're both just powerhouses that do such powerful things. But on the draw against Green Steel, I'm struggling to beat that. And if I have a really good game on the play, on the draw with Amber Steel, I can beat Green Steel. But if they have a very good game on the draw, they can still beat me. Whereas other matchups, it's like I don't care. I'm on the play. I've just won this game. You know, there are a lot of decks where it's like I'm just going first and I'm Amber Steel aggro. I'll probably won this.
Sure, yeah. No, you raised a lot of good points. Because I've also been thinking if my deck can even compete with all of these Amber Steel aggro decks, and it's the difference, right? It's why Green Steel is so much better because the songs that they play
Mm.
actually remove the cards, whereas the songs I play target their hand, and by the time I'm doing that, they probably dumped their hand, right? And like
Yeah.
all of my value I gain is like I literally just have to get to a Muses, and then it's probably like Muses Cricky is kind of my out to the deck. And the footy, like I mean, Green Steel can play Crickies as well if they really want to. Which I honestly, if they chuck one or two into the deck, it's probably not that bad. So, yeah, I could see the frustration against Emerald Steel, but it's also nice to know that there's a deck that can also contend against this Amber Steel onslaught. To be honest,
I, I,
go ahead.
I've tried to mention to some people of like, so right now, like the new deck with the new toys is an aggro deck, and they're always just going to be constantly asking the questions of how do you deal with our stuff, how do you deal with Rhino,
Mm-hmm.
how do you deal with us going wide so fast. So like, if there's a good aggro deck, I always find at the start of a set they will just come to the forefront and be the top thing. But give it some time. There's loads of people testing. There's loads of people working on things. We've got bigger events coming out. I'm sure there'll be tons of answers for this deck coming out. I find, unless the meta is quite rough, it's never likely that Amber Steel is going to be at the top for the full of it.
Mm-hmm.
And even as well, like a lot of these lists, like hasn't won everything. I think even the first weekend, like it was Green Steel that won something, and there was a Green Purple that won something else. So it's very much the deck's probably terrorizing your locals. Like I can fully understand that, but I think yeah, it will easily get like you say, Amethyst Steel coming back. Will do a great game into it. Blurple and Green Steel never feel like very confident in my opinion. They've even got like way more. They're putting big Tinkerbells back in their lists. And if they can get a morph shift big Tinkerbell, that card just beats these aggro decks. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just that no one's playing it right now because like Blue still used to play it, but they've kind of gone under the radar, haven't they? So a card like that easily answered these aggro decks has sort of disappeared for a bit.
All right, yeah, taking a look at another Amber Steel deck list, but this time it's not an aggro one. This is just like kind of more traditional Amber Steel, but it still has the Rhino package in it. And I've been actually eager to hear your thoughts on this type of build of what we feel maybe Rhino adds to the traditional Steel Song decks. So again, this is from Jacob. They came second at the Disney Lorcana Quest Tour 4. This was a 108 player event within Poland. The first place deck, again, congrats to the player. They were playing a very cool Amethyst Steel deck. So that's the deck that went out in the end, but 61 card deck. So unfortunately, cannot cover it. But yeah. What's your thoughts on like traditional Amber Steel?
Yeah, so I think what I noticed in the last set and what I took advantage of when I was playing Kiwi was the Amber Steel went fully on just setting up singers because like ever since Hiram got banned, like Ruby Sapphire kind of went down a bit and you could go more on just set up singers, remove all these low to the ground decks, which meant they had no bodies on board. So with Kiwi, as long as I played Alice Pluto, I could just win because they couldn't run anything into it. They couldn't break it and I was questing for X amount of lore every turn. So I think Rhino kind of introduces a good body on the board early. Because yeah, you say if you went Cindy, Troubadour, Ariel, like I did used to do with Kiwi, I went cool. I'll just get Alice Pluto set up and play a Cogsworth, and you're not breaking that, and I'm gonna win, get to 20 before you do anything anyway. But like introducing a Rhino, like yeah, that wouldn't break a Pluto, but it's just putting another body on the board that can start controlling things. I think as well a lot of like Steel Song players, for much as the deck is based around singing songs they complain, oh, my Ariel didn't find any songs, or I didn't have any songs in the top 15 cards in my deck. So it's like, yeah, well, here's just this giant hamster you could put on the board. And they'll use Rapunzel way better than we will. You won't get as many cards off Rhino, but, still just keeping that shield up sometimes will just win you the game. So yeah, I think it slots in quite, I think it probably is the future of Steel Song, Rhino. And especially after post rotation, where we're going to lose a bunch of cards, Rhino will just fill those cards, at least in the immediate, I think. So yeah, I think it's quite foolish now to not run Rhino in an Amber Steel list, but if anyone has a really valid reason, to like to hear it.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good, and I kind of like the idea of Rhino potentially replacing the I think the most common shift line was usually the big Robin Hood, right? I like the idea of that you can just shift a big body a turn earlier, and it's still really really strong. It's basically a 4/5, and the only difference is, as you said, like maybe you'll get a little bit less Rapunzel value. Like I guess you can't sing a whole new world, but like the decks rarely wanted to sing a whole new world by after you shifted Robin Hood, unless your hand was like insanely bricky. And if you shift this Rhino, you can still sing pretty much every other song in your deck if you really want to. Like if you really want to sing a Zeus on something, you can, but um, it's and I do like a lot of the one-offs in this deck as well. I know Jacob tweeted about this deck, and I think he said the one card he was a little bit less high on after playing the event was actually the Darling Deer, the 5 cost, which I found interesting because I thought that sometimes in these traditional Amber Steel decks, I feel like they just need like that little bit of extra gas to just like get over the edge. Because if they go for a strong aggro start where they go like Daisy, Smee, and then start doing their songs and get a lot of lore early, but then they get slower towards the late game, in my mind I'm like, oh yeah, maybe something like Darling Deer can like kind of close out the game for them. But from their experience, what they said, it seems like that wasn't really the case. But the rest of the one-offs I really like. I like the one-off Bare Necessities, can really take the opponent by surprise. You don't always expect Amber Steel to play this card, and suddenly this song you're holding for the perfect moment that's gonna completely change the game is just gone. So yeah.
Oh yeah, like the best bit of advice I was told of like Amber Steel is if you have like they've got a one-off Aerial Sonic Warrior, but it's like I was told like one-off the Big Cinderella. And it's like it doesn't matter if you play it or you ink it. The moment it is like noticed on the board, your opponent is going to constantly think about it, and like Sonic Warrior is very good against aggro. The minute they ink that card, they don't even have to put it on the board yet. I am constantly going to be worrying about it and thinking about it and thinking if that hits the board, what happens? And like I may waste a strength on an aerial. I wouldn't say it was a waste, but I may target aerial over something else that needs to be removed. because I'm like, if they shift that, I lose.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always the thing with the one drops, with the 7 cost Cinderella. If they shift it, I lose. So my removal will be focused on that. It's just very interesting ways to play. Like you say, if you sing bare necessities on your turn 2 once, they might go, well, how many have they got in their deck?
Mm-hmm.
Like, should I start inking my other non-character stuff? And then they're also just useful cards as well. Like, they always have value in the deck. So yeah, in like Steel Song, where you've got the whole new worlds where you can cycle through the cards so much. Like, I just love doing the one-offs like that.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, really, really cool deck. And again, congrats to Jacob for performing so well in the event. The last deck that we have is a Emerald Amethyst deck. This is by Wee Wee. They came first at Ludafest, which was a 286 player event,
Wow.
absolutely massive event within France. And yeah, it's cool to see Emerald Amethyst come out on top. Of course, this is very much the bird discard version that we've been seeing from set 7 already, but it's including some new cards, such as it's the pull the lever and the wrong lever package, which again also I think is a very, very good answer to Rhino in a sticky situation if you have the pull the lever in the discard pile already. Um, they've got one of Bell rather than, which I would assume maybe people are on more of them. They're higher on the Iagos. Um, this is the interesting thing about the Amethyst decks, where like I'm trying to get in my head like if there's so much Amber Steel running around, are the Iagos really good enough? But like you need to think about it as well. Like people aren't really going to be saving songs for the Iago necessarily. They'll probably use it on the earlier turns, and if it gets taken out, it's kind of an unfortunate timing. And again, if you are playing against an Amber Steel, you're always constantly aware, oh, they could have this removal from my Vanish card, so I probably just like won't play and I'll play something else. But when you're in these Amethyst mirror matches, Iago is just it's just an absolute monster if your opponent can't target it. So I can understand the reason for including it. 2 of Cricky in the step deck, absolutely love it. I honestly just think more green decks should play Cricky, even if it doesn't necessarily fit in. I think 2 Cricky so good, it makes all of your small guys trade up. It's such a strong Emerald card. Um, and I had to look up what this card does, Harlan. It calls me. There's a one of in
Oh,
this
you
deck.
don't know?
I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
not know what the card did.
Yeah. I think it's kind of an interesting card. It calls me. I mean,
Do you want to read it out for
you
the
could do
viewers
it
if that's
on.
okay, actually, in case people aren't aware
Uh,
of it?
I don't know if I have it zoomed in. I can
Magnify,
find it now.
enhance. It's
I'll get it up there. It calls me. It's a action song, of
mhm.
course. Draw a card, then choose up to 3 cards from your chosen opponent's deck and shuffle them into their deck. So you can, I don't know, I liked it a lot more during the item-based
Mhm.
meta, where you could put like dimes and stuff into people's decks. But yeah, I just think it's really cool. Shuffling your opponent's deck, and I don't know, in this scenario, like what could you put in there? Like, what's it called? Like their wrong levers or pull the levers.
Oh
Um,
sure,
but
yeah.
I think it's also that it's a 1 cost song. You can discard it for Diablo, and it draws you a card.
Mhm.
It's just all around not too bad. Um, but yeah, I think like green purple is probably going to come out as like one of the best decks of the format. Like as you mentioned with the Argo, if you went like 2 cost Ursula, Peter Pan, Iago, you could probably play the Argo fairly confidently.
Yeah.
I know that would be 2 turns later where they likely might have had a song, but if you got the Peter Pan value, like it's rushed in already. And like yeah, I played Blurple, and I'm usually a steel player, but when I played Blurple, I was like, wow, into non-steel matchups, Iago is gigantic.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing they can do about him, and he just keeps trading up. So yeah, I think these sort of decks might be just the way that Lorcana goes and what we see like winning set 8.
For sure, yeah. And these decks performed really well in the previous set, and I think they're just in a super solid position now. Like the pull the lever and wrong lever package is just like it's just good cards in my opinion. It's just like some extra card draw on there. Once you have the pull the lever in the discard, it's just like even more removal. And this deck already has like
Mm.
decent removal with the you don't talk about Brunos and stuff. So um yeah, I'm a fan of this.
I
And
think it's
go ahead, go ahead.
it was LD who said like it's pretty good to like pull the lever in the discard from Diablo.
Mhm.
Because of course there's a song no one can take, so in other green matchups you can't do it. And yeah, you get to draw 2 cards, but sometimes it can be a bit of a tempo swing off to hard play it. But yeah, once you get the wrong lever set up, and you can bottom deck like like they have Bruno. I think Bruno's really good, but I assume like one of their biggest problems with if someone plays a shark, what do I do? Like,
Hmm.
does the whole game just sort of stop until I find the answer? But yeah, they've got loads of answers now for it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a combination of the Bruno and the wrong lever. Yeah, that's a particularly nasty opening that you mentioned there of being able to discard pull the lever, and then on turn
Yeah.
three your opponent. Well, it's not always going to be the case, right? But if you particularly choose that, which is generally like, oh, it's like a decent turn three. Like if I just want to draw more cards, your opponent's like, oh, if I play something, it could just get absolutely wiped here, and there's nothing I can do.
Mm.
So yeah, congrats to Wee Wee for performing so well at this event. Again, absolutely massive event, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the next few weeks, man, leading up to Worlds. I know a lot of people are really gonna be like honing in on this 3 deck format. The Worlds format, we're approaching it in what is it, like 2, 3 weeks away now. And previously, myself
Mm.
and Moyne, we kind of had the conversation where we highlighted all of the different ink color combinations, and we kind of theorized that the most common one would be red, blue, amber, steel, and emerald, amethyst. And our theory surrounding that was we looked at kind of the weaker ink color combinations, which the weakest like by itself is probably amber because everyone knows oh amber steel is like a super super good deck, but then you think about amber anything else and it's like uh I don't really know. Like Amber Emerald's okay. You've got like Trinidlogs, you've got other stuff. You've got the discard deck. Um, Amber Amethyst if you want to just go super hyper aggro, or if anybody really wants to try the Monstro deck. But I mean, I didn't really see the Monstro deck performing that well at these events. And if people are playing these aggro decks, the Monstro deck, it's not like you're playing Blurple where you can like ramp to the kind of rush removal card. You're slowly
There
trying to
was
get
someone
there.
someone brought it to our locals, and yeah, it needs like that perfect scenario of like your opponent's playing like a fairly slow deck,
Hmm.
and oh, it's just like kill something of a turn. But I played them round one, and it was just yeah, it was just over so quickly. And then of course they're not spending any time finding the cards they need for the combo, so they might win it, but it's just that yeah, well they won't probably win it.
Hmm.
We did do a practice game when they got on top because with the lanterns and like all of the amethyst package, it's fairly like good control, and then
Hmm.
you play Rapunzel to heal up. But yeah, I don't think if you roll that to Worlds, you'd have to be trolling, I guess. I don't think you would.
I mean, you'd have to predict that everyone's playing slow decks, and then I think it would be like a
Yeah.
a spicy bring that like you've really predicted the meta that you can actually afford to play this
Mm.
deck. But you also still have to find the pieces and get there. But yeah, like I guess I'll pose the question to you of, and you maybe you kind of hinted it previously about like if you were coming to the 3 deck format, what would be the combinations you bring? But also just curious to hear your idea on that theory that we have of like starting with the weaker inks themselves and what pairings they have. Because I think a lot of people like, right, I really need to make the most out of Amber, so I have to go Amber Steel. Therefore, I only have like a limited amount of good decks I can play with the other 4 inks. Or what my pick was like, oh yeah, I could just go Amber Emerald because, for example, I'm quite confident on that deck. I think it has a decent matchup spread overall. And then you can still play good color combinations like Amethyst Steel, Ruby Sapphire, stuff like that. But so if you were to go Sapphire Steel, because everybody would expect you to go Sapphire Steel, what would the other decks be that you'd bring?
Yeah, I saw so Kendall did this,
Hmm.
and he was so I think this format as well leads into like what you think you're best at playing as well.
Hmm.
So like right now it's quite I think it's quite up in the air like, to say what's the best deck in format, but like I say Amber Steel's probably at the front right
Hmm.
now. But he went Sapphire Steel,
Hmm.
which allowed him to play his yellow green Under the Sea, which he's also been playing a lot and quite confident on.
Hmm.
And it also allowed him to play Ruby Amethyst, and like
There you
everyone goes,
go.
no, I'm not. As like so in this format, like that was the best color things for him,
Hmm.
because it allowed him to play 2 decks that he really likes. And I did notice like it almost felt like what was the color you didn't want to play because you didn't think you were going to be able to play because just pair it with steel
Hmm.
because like I looked at like every game and it was always the steel deck was banned,
Hmm.
so it was like maybe I'm not a very good amber steel player, I'll just put amber steel in there because it's also a good deck, so if they don't ban it I get to play a really good deck. I think yeah, for myself personally, I really like this format because it allowed Amber Amethyst to exist as a hyper aggro deck,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always really liked hyper aggro. But it's just you can't when steel is so popular, it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So Amber Amethyst, I think I would look at Emerald Steel, and then Ruby Sapphire. And like Ruby Sapphire is not a deck I've played a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's quite powerful. I think I could get the reps in by now to the point I'd need to play it. And at that point, I've got like an aggro deck, a mid-range deck, and a fairly control-based deck. But again, like, I wouldn't say that's the best for everyone. Just like that's how my head would lean towards what I was trying to pick.
Sure, yeah. And actually, speaking about Ruby Sapphire, just briefly there, because I know this is the second week we haven't covered a deck, and I will again shout out to Spessy was playing in the Norway Open, I think Lorcana event, which was
Mm.
about 36 players. Spessy finished second on Emerald Amethyst, and it was a Ruby Sapphire player that won it in the end. And they were on like the workshop build, which, from what I'm seeing, that seems to be the most commonly played version of Ruby Sapphire at the moment. It seems to be doing like still fairly okay. Granted, I don't think it's a tier 1 deck at the moment. Um, but a lot of people are moving away from the TKP Ruby Sapphire. I've still seen a few of them floating around. Some of them trying to play with the new legendary Lilo. Just to put a new card in the deck, pretty much. But like the deck is just so solid that it doesn't really need anything else new. But yeah, like my thoughts on Ruby Sapphire in general at the moment is, I think if people can figure out this Amber Steel aggro deck within the next like 2 or 3 weeks, which of course they will, because there's so many people playing this game and testing and stuff that you said, I think Ruby Sapphire will really find its place. And as I said, like we can still see it like winning events, maybe not the bigger events for the moment, but the workshop build is still super powerful. It actually probably has some decent game against a lot of the discard decks, which I would say the DKP version might have struggled against. It definitely struggled against the Amber Emerald one, because they're so
When I
heavy on
played,
actions. Sorry, go ahead. Go. You're good.
yeah, I did see Bivens versus I can't remember, it is Jonathan Williams,
Mm.
and it was on Workshop versus Under the Sea discard.
Mm.
I think you can definitely go the wrong way, and I think Under the Sea discard or Green Yellow is a lot better.
Mhm.
But with Green Steel, when I was picking that up, that was going to be like a deck I was going to play.
Mhm.
But when I played against Workshop, as long as they found a Workshop, you pretty much were never going to discard them.
Yep.
And the common line is they would miss the ramp on 2, but they'd play a Coil and a Sisu or a Brawl, so you could never get a Diablo online.
Mhm.
And once they've got one Workshop, they'll probably find their second one. And then whenever you discard them, they'll just find like a random hatty item and just play it.
Yep.
And then like fill their entire hand up again, play and draw. And it's like if you watch Svesi's final game, it's like it's very hard to attack their hand because you either get them down to one card and it's like an item or a card they actually want. And if not, they top deck an item they want, or they play a Scrooge and get an item they want, or just any item, and then they just keep spamming with the workshop. But I do think the workshop deck into aggro is just aggro's asking too many questions for it to answer, and also do its own game plan as well. So it might struggle, but Sisu's still an amazing card. And I think with like the RP Shark, it used to be like they just accepted that they lost on the draw versus the aggro decks. They might win it sometimes, but they did. But I think they're now consistently not winning as much on the draw either as well. With Lady allowing you to go, really wide, just fully spamming, and everyone committing to like 4 piglets in their deck. So yeah, I think that matchup's shaken up a bit, but the like DKP list is just so strong. I don't even think it needed any new cards. It's just maybe you put some more goofies back in there, or maybe change some ratios around. But I think it's just fine. Like it still will probably win events.
Oh, for sure, definitely. But yeah, interesting. Again, Worlds format is something we're gonna just like kind of continue to talk about as we approach the big event. And it's a funny one, but like I actually really enjoy it because it's something interesting for us in general to think about and theorize about, but not every Lorcana player like is gonna really experience it and stuff. But as a competitive player myself, like I can't even begin to imagine what the mindset of some of these world's players is right now, right? Like the idea of something that you said there where it's like, okay, can I just play a hyper aggro deck if I like just bench the steel deck? Like, is that something I could just do to be like, oh, maybe as long as I know I'm not playing against the steel deck, I've got a decent shot. In my opinion, then I'd say like they probably have tricky with, or they probably have trouble with any general amethyst deck, especially if they can kind of do some rush things. But steel is kind of the bigger problem, right? But the idea of that, right, of like um these worst players in my opinion, and I'm sure in their opinion as well, like they have to go into this with a super solid game plan. Not only do they really have to put in the time to understand each of these three decks that they've built, know the play patterns, know to run them inside out, but also know, okay, like I think it's important to know what a lot of people are gonna potentially bring, and that's why I kind of like I talk about like these the choices that we may think might be the most commonly picked, and all of these world players are so good that's probably not going to be the case. But it's important to think about, okay, if I'm coming up against Ruby Sapphire, that is like my toughest matchup, or if I'm coming against up against Amber Steel, that is my toughest matchup. All of these players have to go like really in depth and think about these things, and it's interesting for me, at least from the outside, to at least theorize. And a part of me is kind of glad that I'm not in that position right now, because I'd just be sweating. I'd just be thinking constantly like, okay, is this what I want to do? Is that what I want to do? But I guess that's why they're there, and they're probably. I'm sure some of them are like maybe a little bit nervous naturally, but I'm sure they're excited and enjoying the prep as well, because it's something new that many of us haven't got to experience yet, right?
Yeah. I don't know about like it'd be interesting like anyone who's listening like if their locals has put on or like suggest the because ours did the other night and it was like actually to get everyone to have three fully meta decks it's like actually fairly expensive.
It is.
And bearing in mind me like I float my copies of Strength of the Raging Fire because they're always like fairly expensive. I just float them from deck to deck.
Mhm.
Just to which I guess you wouldn't float because it'd all be in steel, which is fine. But it's just really interesting to like, can I build three? I think I probably out of most players could build three meta decks, with cards. Like I'm quite fortunate if I can, but it'd be nice to see if like anyone's locals is just like let's put one on, or like maybe to celebrate Worlds they'll do a three deck format event and the prizings whatever. Yeah, I think everyone wants to try it as well. Like I remember Conquest and Hearthstone and loads of other like games. It's always it is a really fun and rewarding thing because you do the game plan of like I've got this aggro deck that will beat that matchup, but I need to ban to make sure this and it always gets really in depth.
Or the mind games of like they think I'm gonna ban this, so then maybe I ban this instead.
Mm.
That's when you get like way too deep into it, right? Where you start
Oh,
you start playing yourself in your head.
it's even like cooler with like Lorcana because we have like I guess celebrities of decks. Like if you play DKP, he might go, I think they're gonna ban my Ruby Sapphire. So do I even bother building it, or do I build it and just that's always the ban target? And and there's gonna be loads of players like that. It's like Ed's like if he built Ruby Amethyst on there, it's like I'm probably just gonna ban him every time. But do I not? Or like, oh wait a minute, I don't think Ruby Amethyst is that good this set. I won't ban it. And it kind of goes like really in depth at that point. And because we've all got like these quite awesome personalities, it's like great to have these type of people in their community. So it's gonna be interesting to watch as well. And being like, you didn't ban that against him, like that's just madness. You're throwing your world's chance away. So yeah, it's gonna be really good fun.
Yeah, I'm really hyped for it, and I hope a lot of you guys are able to watch the stream. I really encourage you guys to watch the stream, and of course, catch any of the VODs on YouTube afterwards if you unfortunately miss it. But yeah, I don't have any plans yet myself, but I will probably try and go to a local game store here in Germany, or um, I don't know if anybody from Card Market wants to watch Worlds with me.
Oh.
That would be cool. But yeah, do you have any plans for Worlds yourself, or like, do you think you'll go to like the local game store and they'll do like a little watch party or something?
We mentioned it, like the locals to do like a little event, like some Swiss thing, and then they have like a big D&D room where they could put it on, and we could all watch. And if there's enough people excited for that, I'd really be on for it. But on the flip side, me and Ali can just watch it and get a takeaway, and just because I can't really figure out the time is for it because it'll be America, so
Sure, yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like I don't know where we want to be and if the locals would be happy being open at these times or
Later and
whatever.
stuff.
So
Mm.
yeah, it might be best just to do an event there and do some Swiss and maybe, like you say, do free deck format and not take it too seriously because we got some new players and I would be very rude to them. Be like, and now build three meta decks and you're going to play them for one event and it's worth a pin badge and a spinner.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be worth that, would it? Wouldn't. So maybe we'll just have a bit of fun with it. But
Sure.
it was nice to see some of the community like when there was like, oh, Worlds isn't open for like spectators. them to like, oh, we could do this, we could have this party, or like everyone come around. And I just saw it all over Twitter and like in the Discords. And that's really nice that not everyone like. There were some people complaining, and I completely understood that, but like, a lot of people just get on with it and like try and make the best of it. And sometimes in Lorcana, it's been that way. We've had some very interesting decisions made out of the game. There's no DLCs right now as well.
Yep.
But it's like a lot of people are like making do. I actually realized in set 7 how much competitive play. Like I went to Germany to play as well. Like I didn't do a DLC, but I had like loads of good fun. So it's nice to see our worlds brought everyone together. I think with a few complaints. Yeah.
For sure, yeah, no, I'm excited. Before I leave everybody this episode, if you notice in Harlan's background, we've kind of this running joke when you're mentioning like, oh, maybe we'll go to the LGS, maybe we'll stay home and have a takeaway. We're convinced that Harlan and Ali are slowly turning their home into their own LGS. They've got so much stuff behind them.
I can't remember who offered us that. No, was it? I think it might have been at the last content.
It was at the last influencer event where it was like, yeah, does anybody want this? The amount of stuff you guys were, yeah, the amount of stuff you guys were walking, like you guys were on like the train with that and everything. It was so funny. Oh man.
Yeah, we might get some more as well. That's an odd one. It's kind of like weird where to put it. I kind of like hide.
Is that in the center of your room at the moment?
I'm kind of like hiding like boxes and like dirty washing and stuff behind it, like using it like that.
Sure.
But yeah, we've got all the posters up as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll probably get some more over time.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, if anyone lives around Harlan, be sure to go to his, set champs. He'll be hosting it in his living room. Oh man.
Yeah, getting the promos in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Harlan, again for joining me. It's always a pleasure having you on the podcast and chatting everything Lorcana. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you again, and I hope there are some DLCs soon. Excited for rotation. I think that's when at least my competitive spirit is really gonna kick back in, where like the meta's wide open. A lot of new decks to brew and things to do. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, again, as usual, I'll give you an opportunity to shout yourself out so people know where to find you.
Yeah, Harlan Sweet, and we've been doing a lot of Sapphire Steel, but I've been really enjoying Amber Steel aggro with Rhino, and that's sort of why I was on here today. But we do all that stuff on YouTube. We've got Twitter as well. We have like a charity Metafy tier where I just do like a meta roundup. We just go through like the direction of the meta, and then every month I give that money to like a charity of choice. But besides that, yeah, just catch me anywhere else, and I'll be at Axion for anyone who's there as well.
Awesome. I can't believe I'm not going to Axion, but hopefully I can catch the next one. I'm hoping now that I'm in Germany, I'm just hoping I can go to like more Lorcana events and stuff in general. But this is my first week getting settled and stuff like that, so I'm a little bit all over the place. But hopefully I'll settle into it.
Have you looked at the Grand Prix at Italy?
I have looked at it, and I know that tickets went back up for it a few days after it like sold out. But unfortunately, I won't be going to it. There were a few Lorcana events I've been looking around at trying to go to, like even this Poland one that happened last weekend.
Yeah.
I just realized Poznan is like, I don't know, it's like a very short train ride, but like it's pretty close to Berlin. And I was tempted to go at Moyen this past weekend, but like I don't know, it's just my first week moving to Germany, my first weekend. I probably should just get settled and get into the swing of things. But I'm excited to just try and do more tournaments in the future. And if there's another one in Ravensburg, I'll definitely make my way down this time. So
is it the Law Quest in Poznan?
It's the Quest tour. We went to the first one, right?
Yeah, we went to that was their first time meeting you. I actually thought they were really well done, really good, and the pricing was pretty good. And I think before Italy was announced, we were looking at going there, but then like I think Italy was like semi Ravensburger associated, so we were like, we'll probably go to that one instead.
Nice.
But there's tons of events. Like, yeah, sadly there's no like 2,000 person DLC. But like when I went to Ravensburg, even there, it was so nice. Like you see everyone. You got to see Bennett again. I always love seeing Bennett. He's always the most cheerful guy.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just great when the community comes together and you just see all the friendly faces again.
For sure. And the thing to note as well that a lot of these events, for example, like the Poland one and the one in Italy, and I think there's actually, I'm a little bit sad, There's one back home in Ireland, I
Oh
think,
no.
in Northern Ireland. But all of these events, at least the Poland one, I know the one at home as well. Some of the top pricing, they have the 2025 promo playmat because they're like
Oh
supported or
nice.
sponsored by Ravensburger. Again, this isn't going to be all of the events, but I think the one in France might have had it as well, the Ludafest one. Um, so it's just nice to know that Ravensburger themselves are actually like kind of supporting these third party events, especially when there's nothing else official going on. Even if that's just, oh, we'll give you some promo playmats like that. That's suddenly like at least a lot more incentive for someone like me to be like, oh, I actually might be interested. Like it's just a cooler prize to win rather than just some
Yeah.
packs and some boxes.
Yeah, I think that's all they really had to do for like the immediate whilst they're getting the DLC sorted out was like here's some promo, maybe even some promo cards if they could have like if they had any. But
Hmm.
the playmats definitely is worth playing for, like value wise on those things, and just it's a fairly prestigious thing to win. So like yeah, oh no, it's awesome. I didn't even think about that because UK Games Expo had it,
Hmm.
but that felt like that was official Lorcana down there,
Hmm.
with the whole team. So yeah, if just other events to have that, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. All right, I'm sure we could talk for another 2 hours, but we're going to leave you guys there. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys liked it, the number one thing that you can do is leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local podcast platform. There is a video version of this available over on youtube.com/@ Podcana Podcast. Hit the subscribe while you're there. Twitters are at Kawatech_CG and at Harlan Sweet. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.